Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild was not a good continuation of the franchise in my opinion. I will lay out clearly why I think this in today's video. I typically don't like making negative reviews, that's what every other film YouTuber does. I want to make positive videos where I explain how good something is, but today I will make an exception. The film did a few key things wrong. While many problems are scattered throughout this movie, these ones I feel are the most prevalent. Complete ignorance of who the characters are, complete ignorance of continuity, and terrible world building. The best part about Ice Age arguably is the characters. I mean, that's why we keep watching these movies. We come back to see Manny, Sid, and Diego. When I watched this film, none of these characters were present. Their designs, their voices, and their personalities weren't them. Let's start with Sid. He is my favorite character in this franchise. There are important things to know about Sid. He is loyal, he is empathetic, he may not have great physical strength, but he's committed to helping his herd. He plays a role in what happens. He makes the fires that keep them warm at night. He's always trying to solve his friends' problems. Sid is not like this in Buck Wild. The writers showed a complete lack of understanding of his character and how other characters see him. What I always enjoyed about Sid is despite his clumsiness and his mistakes, his herd views him as essential. They never straight up insult him for the sake of it, tease him sure, but they do not go out of their way to hurt him. When we first get introduced to Sid in Buck Wild, he is aimlessly babbling about something and his friends aren't listening. Even as a gag, it was not in the slightest funny to me. Sid acts out of character the entire film. He is not helpful or supportive. When he makes jokes, it is only in his character on a surface level, but is truly out of character. I dislike this the most in storytelling, when a character does or says something they never would, just for the sake of making a joke. When Sid asks, shouldn't we just be looking for bones? While this may be a haha Sid is stupid and insensitive moment, it completely ignores the nuance of his character. All these characters are so much more than the one personality trait associated with them. Sid is sensitive to what is going on. In Continental Drift, he didn't ask Manny whether or not they should just be looking for the bones of Peaches and Ellie. He understands Manny's attachment to them. He would never say anything to make him worry more about the situation, and just be straight up insensitive. Especially not at this point in his arc, but I doubt even Sid in the first two movies would even say anything like this. The characters of Ice Age are important. They speak to kids on a level that as we get older we tend to forget. Sid is the character that screams in terror when the situation is tense and scary. Sid is the character that cries when things are sad. Sid is the character that makes us laugh and smile. He is what kids attach to take them through the story. It's no wonder he is so popular. The Sid in this movie does not comfort kids. He doesn't make them feel like they can be the hero because he can. No, this is not Sid at all. He doesn't view Crash and Eddie as disposable. He is not seen as a member who does not carry his own weight. And most importantly, he is not thought of by the herd to have only worthless opinions that should be ignored. It's disgusting how they made the herd resemble Sid's family so much. The very message of how he got away from his old family who never cared for him but found a new one is redundant in this film. The same goes for Crash and Eddie. These characters have already gone through everything in this film already. This makes the movie already boring and unimportant to the Ice Age franchise. It also means they are given false drama and made 1,000 times stupider for the sake of comedy. The conflict Crash and Eddie have with Ellie and the rest of the herd is contrived and fake. Ellie does not protect her brothers from punishment. She's the one who delivers it. Crash and Eddie already love their sister and have already carved themselves a life of adventure. While friction may sometimes arrive, there's no indication in the last 4 movies that Crash and Eddie ever sought to abandon their family. Crash and Eddie, like Sid, are not completely useless. They don't have to learn to carry their weight and be heroes. They already did that. Who clung on to Sid during the flood? Who flew on a pterodon with Buck? Who helped fight against pirates and stop an asteroid? This movie completely ignores everything that came before and only uses the most basic character traits to make up a fake story to fill 80-minute quotas. Speaking of which, Manny the Mammoth doesn't hate Crash and Eddie. Manny is fine with them. They don't go out of their way to bother Manny. Manny even treats them as full uncles to his daughter. They helped him raise Peaches. So why does Manny care so little about Crash and Eddie? Why is Ellie the only one that makes a fuss about anything? Remember how Manny said he would never doubt Buck again because he saved the herd on multiple occasions? So why does Manny still in this film call Buck an untrustworthy crazy weasel? Manny is another character important to the kids that watch and love this franchise. He is a role model. He sets a moral example. He shows how change is possible. He tells us to care about our families and to protect them. These traits define Manny, not that he is grumpy. Describing Manny as a grumpy old mammoth is a completely inaccurate assessment of his character. Manny traversed the entire dinosaur world to save Sid. He fought pirates and sailed across the ocean to save his family. The Manny we see in this film is rude to Ellie and rude to his friends. He sets a terrible example for kids. It must have been a good 4 years since the writers of Buck Wild watched an Ice Age film because the continuity is all over the place. One of my favorite things about the relationship between Sid and Mama Dinosaur is that they couldn't speak to each other, but they were still able to understand each other. Mama Dinosaur was very expressive. It was like the relationship with the humans. These two completely different sides of nature were able to come to an understanding of each other. That's beautiful. Sid talking to Mama Dinosaur negates all the creative writing of the third movie. Also, the reunion was just underwhelming in general. While pleasantly surprised to see Ellie's flashback scene brought up again, I was quickly dumbfounded. Ellie did not spend her entire childhood under the same tree the possums found her under. If she did, then when she saw that tree again in the second movie, she would have just remembered the good time she had with her brothers and disturbingly that her mother is buried by that tree. No, Ellie was found under that tree, but she didn't stay there for long. She didn't find that tree again until after she met Manny, and that's when the memory came back to her. Another terrible thing this movie does is, in my opinion, it botches Buck's backstory. I don't think we ever really needed to know Buck's backstory. You can already piece it together from the clues in the first movie he shows up in. He was a part of a family that didn't like him. He wasn't welcomed. He became exiled and ended up in the dinosaur world. He never returned because he didn't want to. And that's when he went crazy, and that's why he formed relationships with animals and objects. Buck wasn't on a mission to create the democratization of the Lost World to make all animals equal under the law. That's not even a thing. The Lost World is a wild place. From what we have seen, there are not a lot of mammals down there. Buck was always helping those who couldn't help themselves, but this world building was as distinctly not Ice Age as you can get. Add a bland villain on top, and nothing about this film feels like you went through an Ice Age adventure. The animation was a huge downgrade. I mean, the first film had smoother animation. This film was clunky and nothing looked right, but the music was just aggravating. The soundtracks crafted by John Powell were tailor-made to fit the scenes they were played in. So when one of John Powell's themes plays that signifies a huge ending moment of the film, but it happens at the beginning, it feels wrong. Powell's scores show up in the film and fail to match the scene because they weren't made for that scene. John Powell is a musical genius. His scores always played an emotional role to the film, creating just the right feeling and signifying what was happening. This film failed in every way in terms of music. I'm sorry this review was so negative, but I felt like I just had to make it. I hope Ice Age returns to a better level, but in my personal opinion, Collision Course was the finale of the franchise, and I believe it was a way better movie than Buck Wild. I believe that film is an integral part of Ice Age, and I feel Buck Wild can't be ignored. It didn't try to be good. It was rushed and not thought out. Why should I care about how this movie affects the franchise if the movie doesn't care? Ice Age remains an incredible franchise that taught children morals and the importance of life and who you surround yourself with. Ice Age is meant to be comforting. Despite its cold setting, the warmness comes from the characters. The good news is that those first 5 films will always be there for us, to remind us about how great ourselves can be, through nuance and amazing characters that took us on adventures in a bygone world. I do not hate Buck Wild, because it reminded me what was so good about this franchise. And also, I don't like the feeling of hate, so when I think of Ice Age, I don't think I will think of Buck Wild. Anyway, that's all I got for today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.